What if symptoms so many women are trying to fix are not actually problems to eliminate, but signals pointing toward patterns that we never fully understood? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NeuroAlchemy, the brain body healing podcast. And this is the space where science meets soul, where we slow our conversations down enough to understand what's happening inside the human system, and where healing is explored as a multidimensional journey. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Young. I'm a neurointegrative practitioner, and my work centers on helping people reconnect the dots between the brain, the body, the nervous system, emotional experience, and identity. Because healing is rarely just physical, you guys. It's neurological, it's emotional, it's relational. And often it's layered across time in ways we don't immediately recognize. Today's conversation really sits at that intersection. Today, I'm joined by Vanina Grisoni. Vanina works at the intersection of women's health, cyclical intelligence, trauma, nervous system mapping, and ancestral imprint. Her work invites both practitioners and women to begin seeing symptoms differently, not as failures of the body, but as meaningful signals from deeper, often unintegrated layers of experience. Vanina, I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and we're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Sarah. It's so nice to be here and sharing with you.
Before we begin, I always like to start with just a gentle check-in as we step into this conversation. How are you arriving, whether that's physically, emotionally, spiritually, or otherwise?
It's my first day of my cycle, so I feel really, connected to soul. And I think I will be speaking from that place. And the sun is coming back, I don't know, in Europe. And so it's nice. It's a nice place, all warm.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes, it is such a pleasure that the sun is coming back after a long winter. And to all of our listeners out there, just a reminder, however you are arriving today to this conversation is enough. There's not anything that you need to do. Just be present with us today. Before we go deeper, I'd love to ground a few key terms just to orient our listeners. We're going to be exploring concepts that, they can mean different things to different people depending on their background. So I want to create a shared starting point. Vanina, I'd love to begin here. When you talk about cyclical intelligence, what does that mean in a lived, practical sense?
For me, it means that as women, we have like a cyclical imprint. We are connected to the cycle of nature. If we look at nature, you were talking about the long winter. We have winter, spring, summer, autumn. And as women, this intelligence of the cycle of nature are really within us. And we can see the menstrual cycle of women connected to the lunar cycles. And if we go, we look at our ancestors, they were painting moons on woman body in the cave. So that was always known. And they were measuring time, both with the lunar cycle, but also with women's cycles. So that's, for me, part of our imprint. And it's an intelligence of going back to that and understanding how all those cycles, the cycles of our menstrual cycle, but also the cycle of life. Going back to our ancestry, I think a lot of topic we're going to talk about today, like all those cycles have energetic imprint, and they are all connected together, and they form like a pathway to really understand a lot of what's going on for us.
And I'd love to stay here for a moment because I think many women have been taught to override their cycles, right? Rather than understand them. What I see clinically is that when the body's natural rhythms are ignored or misunderstood, the nervous system often shifts into compensation. And over time, that can look like fatigue, dysregulation, or symptoms that don't quite make sense in isolation. Vanina, when you refer to linear memory or ancestral imprint, how do you see that showing up in the body?
I really see, when you were talking about overriding our cycles, I think that for me, it's like generation upon generation. I think our society today is mainly functioning based on the male hormonal cycle. So male hormonal cycle is circadian. So it means every day. Like basically a man, when he wakes up, if he finds a good routine, he could be doing the same thing every day and will be supportive of his health. And all our society is based on that. Like we should be waking up every morning, every Monday morning, going to work and be able to perform the same type of tasks. So except us as women, we are very different. While a man travels through a day, we travel through a month. And we are expecting to perform and do the same task every and it's overriding our body. And it has been going on for generation and generation. So those are deep imprints that we carry. And like you say, it has impact on our health. And as we have been taught to override it, we also have been taught to take pills to suppress it. And I think you probably know the health long-term impact it has on us.
Absolutely. And you know what you're saying, it expands that timeline of healing, doesn't it? Because we're not just looking at, what happened last week. We're not looking at what happened last year. We're looking at patterns that have been carried, that have been adapted, that have been shaped over generations.
Yes.
You also talk about symptoms as messages rather than as malfunctions. Can you help our listeners understand that shift?
Yeah. So I'm mainly looking at symptoms of the menstrual cycles, or that's my field. And for me, I'm looking at it as like the sixth sign of health. You have temperature, body temperature, a lot of things. And as women, we have another one. We basically look at our menstrual health, and it gives us indication of what's going on inside of our body. And the magic of it is that, like, symptoms will first show up in our menstrual cycle before it shows up everywhere else. And it's like receiving first sign of something might not be right. My cycle this month that's not my baseline. That's a shift. Okay, what's going on? Can I look at what's been going on in my life, my level of stress? Have I changed the way I eat? Because if something is shifting in my cycle, it means and other symptoms in the body will show up much later. So it's like a warning sign that we learn to listen. And as you were talking about ancestry, it's also, I've seen it time and time again, how we see the same signals in different maternal line. It goes back and back and back. And we could say genetic, but it's not always. It's also like what has been passed on as belief in some family. So in some family, when young girls get their menstruation for the first time, they are passing down like a curse. Oh, you're going to suffer every month and it's going to be hard, but it's part of being a woman. Some women have been told that. And when you receive that, like, it becomes your prophecy somehow. And we know how, everything we can create from belief alone. And so it's also looking at those important passage of a woman's life, which are like I call it the menarche, the first time you get your menstruation. Pregnancy is one, menopause is another. Like those time are very important. They're like rite of passage. It's like, liminal space where we get a lot of our imprints. And talking about trauma, for example, like we know traumatic birth is like a deep imprint that women carry. So we look at those times and how they have defined us somehow. And oftentimes we see thread with what happened with our mothers, our grandmother, and we see how we have been passed that down. It's an opportunity also to release for our maternal line, release those beliefs and all those trauma that have been carried along.
So many women don't really pay attention to their cycles, do they? They just kind of go along and it's just something we deal with. It's just something we go through. I love how nuanced your awareness is in this area and how you're really shedding that light. Let's talk about your story. What opened up your awareness to these patterns that you're now not only aware of and seeing, but working with all the time?
I was very much raised in a family without men. So only strong women, like work harder than men, and you will be able to make it. And if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything. So which was a blessing somehow, but it brought me up to be quite tough. Also, I think I've wished for a long time to be a man. Felt like my life would be easier if I was a man. It was easier for me to interact with men. I understood better, how it worked socially. So I became an engineer, and I went to like I was working in finance, always surrounded by men. And when I was 27, a friend of mine, she brought me to a women's circle, basically all women talking in turn. So uncomfortable, was really not my space. And the question we were discussing was what it is for you to be a woman. And I was 27, and I realized I had like no answer to that question, no clue. Really no clue. And I was speechless. I'm like, how can that be 27? And I have no answer to that question. And I started crying at the time when I was not okay to cry. And I really feel like it opened me up. And a lot of the emotion I was holding inside, started coming through. And it took me on a journey to finding answer to that question. And yeah, got me basically into a rabbit hole of my own, connection and dissociation from my female body. At the time, menstrual cycle was, I could spend 10 or 11 months without a cycle, this huge period of time. And I connected back to how I received my first cycle. And I was 16, it was pretty late. Maybe unconsciously I was putting it away, delaying it for a long time. And I remember my mom giving me a pill for the pain and a tampon so I could keep living my life like nothing was happening. So it wasn't nothing to talk about, nothing. And most of all, okay, here what I can give you so you can keep on going in your life. And then I look at that, so I'm like, no wonder why my cycles have been hiding, disappearing. And even when I got them was 2 to 3 days, very discreet. And all my friends were like, oh, you're so lucky. Yeah, but they are just, it's just this disappearing thing, not taking space. And it was also my personal story of hiding. I was hiding as well in a lot of things I was doing. I was hiding my leadership, my power. I was always saying I wanted to do great thing in the shadow of someone great so that no one could see me. And I started connecting all the dots. It was all making sense. And so I went on a personal healing journey for a few years. And when I came out of it, I'm like, okay, I need to be teaching and supporting women to understand all that. And I think it resonates with your own story of your healing journey and sharing. Yeah.
Yeah, so often the work that people do professionally is rooted in something
Yeah.
that they've either lived or they've witnessed directly. There's usually a moment where things stop making sense within the existing model that they're in. And we start to look around for what other avenues there can be. And when we look at women navigating symptoms today, many are doing everything they've been told to do. Like you were saying, they take the pill, they take the tampon, they move on, they keep going through their day. They're eating well, they're taking the supplements, they're trying to manage the stress, and yet something is still not quite right? They're not really in tune with those parts of themselves. What are some of the most common symptoms or experiences that you see are often misunderstood or overlooked?
I see a lot of women being put on hormonal contraception very young for acne, for pain, no, not really for contraception at all. And then they just keep taking it because, it's become part of their life and they're not questioning it. And then one day they stop because they want to have kids and they see their menstrual cycle being all over the place. Because I have not been told that menstrual cycles, this could be 2, 3, 4 years before it actually settles. So when you pause it, because when they will tell you take the pill, it will help regulate your cycle. It does not regulate stable. It's just put the cycle on pause. So when you like click on play again, you just go back to your like adolescent cycles, and women are just like, what's going on? It's all over the place. And I want to have a baby. And sometimes it happens. I don't, I was like, I'm 35. I don't have time for all of that to settle, for example. And then they go back on like more hormonal support to get children. And they go back on the hormonal pill once they're done, and they arrive at menopause, and that's something else. And then your bone density is not going well. Yeah. I've been on menstrual hormonal support for a long time, and they're not being told that it's basically, a rabbit hole that's like it's pills upon pills and hormonal support upon hormonal support. And one thing I want women to know is that we are not being taught the long-term effect of some of those medications. And I'm not against hormonal contraception. I think for some time it could make sense, but we are not being explained the implication. If I'm just looking, because I support a lot of women through menopause, and looking at bone density, we are not being taught that ovulating is super important for our health. It's not about making babies. It's important for our metabolic health, our neurological health, because you probably know like all the impact hormones have on the brain. So when we don't ovulate for most of our life, it has huge impact on our health. And just talking about bone density as an example is that we build our bone density up until 25, 27. That's where we build our maximum capacity. And when we spend 10 years on hormonal contraception, then we don't build up all the bones that we need. And we wake up at menopause with our stock being way down. So it's my invitation. It's really like educating ourselves, really understanding how everything works. Your hormones are not just something to get children or go through menopause. They are really a foundational part of our health, and ovulating is really a foundational part of our health. And look at every symptoms or discomfort that we have as a signal that something is not going well. Even menopause, there's some countries where women they go through menopause without much symptoms. So yeah, what does it say? I think you are talking about the nervous system. Like oftentimes women go through menopause, everything is more sensitive because of the brain. You probably know that. So our sensitivity level goes up the roof. We have less buffer available. So women are like, what's going on? No, it's just like we've been living a life way too stressful for us, and we've been tolerating things in our life that we shouldn't have. And it's just like right now, we're just opening our eyes to what we have put our body through. And can we see all those signals as messages and blessing to create adjustment, and don't stay with just unanswered questions, because that's often what happens. We have all those symptoms. We go see medical professional and just say, okay, I can only give you pills for your symptoms. And okay, look, because there's options for everything. And our body, I strongly believe, is highly intelligent. And all those signals can lead us through our healing path.
That's something I see quite often as well. It's not that people are failing, right? It's that they're working within an incomplete framework. They're band-aiding symptoms instead of going to the root cause of why is this going on. And my next question, we've kind of already answered about how nervous system mapping absolutely is related to our hormones, how much the hormones affect the brain, affect the body, as we age, as we're living life, and what's fascinating is that the nervous system, it's constantly interpreting those internal and those external signals. So when our regulation shifts, it's not just affecting our mood, it's affecting hormonal patterns, it's affecting our energy, and it's affecting our body's ability to adapt. You also talk about the rites of passage as kind of like a neurological turning point Looking at stages like we've been talking about, where do you see disconnection or disruption occurring?
And if we look at important passages, specifically in a woman's life, so we all have birth, how we were birthed into this world and everything we carry from it. And that's not specifically specific to women. We have a menarche, the first time we receive our menstrual cycle. And on that one, I'm always telling women to just reconnect to the story around that. All the messages heard, told or untold, because sometimes silence could be a message, and not feeling welcome or celebrated could be a message. And really reflect at how it shaped our definition of being a woman, our connection to our femininity. Then we have our initiation into sexuality, which is also a great stage. How did we connect to that? Was that something we wanted, something we did out of pressure? Was there pleasure? Was there, all of that? And then it's our all those passage through motherhood for those that go through it. But I also include miscarriage, abortion, like all of that. All those experiences are really shaping profoundly, and all the way up to menopause. And I think it's really important for all women to understand about menopause is like ripening what we sowed. It's like the autumn of our life. And when we look at autumn in the nature, it's an harvest season, right? And really what's showing up at menopause, it's really connected to everything in our life. And so we know we don't have enough research on women's health, but the little research that we do have, it really shows connection between, postpartum depression and menopause. Did we breastfeed our children and certain symptoms in menopause? Like they see all those connection of what went on in our life. And because all those rites of passage are connected. Each one is also an opportunity on healing the one before. It's like, you use the word I liked, I forgot, but for me, it's like a portal. What did you call it? You forgot. I like something you said. I will re-listen to it, to review it, but it's basically each one is a portal to like a pause.
Maybe was it neurological turning points?
Yes, that's the one I liked. And it's basically the time where you have access to subconscious pattern and you can really reshape a lot of things. So every rite of passage is an opportunity to heal what came before. And when I'm talking about that, it's really like the nervous system. We know that the nervous system is holding all that, holding all those experiences. And we know how intelligent the nervous system is, because what does he want? He wants to go back. He will repeat some experiences to heal, to redefine a different outcome than what happened at that traumatic time. And we really do have a huge opportunity at each of those rites of passage to go back to some of those patterns and heal. And just talking about pregnancies, and giving birth, a lot of women said that it's also where a great healing experience.
These transitions are often treated as purely biological, aren't they? But you're right. They're deeply neurological and emotional as well.
Yeah.
And, when they're not supported, the nervous system doesn't always integrate these transitions very smoothly. I'd like to go a little deeper into the lineage part. How does trauma from previous generations show up in the body, even when someone doesn't consciously know the story?
Great. It's a big question. So there's a lot of things now that we can explain through epigenetic, right? How our genes are not only they are really much influenced by environment. And we need to know that at a cellular level, we were inside our grandmother womb when she was pregnant with our mom. So it means that just this link, like our cells, they were plugged into what happened at that time. And it really builds a connection. And we were inside of our own mother wounds and everything that happened there. And that's more how now we can explain it with the science. But in a lot of ancestral traditions, they say that we are very much connected 7 generations above and below. And when we stand at the center of it. We are both holding on our shoulders everything that happened before, but we are also guardian of the next generation. And we have this opportunity to, when we heal our own patterns, or we heal the patterns we hold from our ancestor, we also heal 7 generations back and forward. And I've seen it with women that I've worked with. Like, they were just working on themselves and their female body and everything. And they came back to me 1 month later saying, I've seen my mom change so much and my relationship with her change so much. Because it's like, I call it the red thread. It's like something we are connected through time. And I really do believe our generation right now, we like a healing mission, not only for us, for sure. So it's interesting to go back to some of the stories that we are able to uncover, and also know that sometimes what we feel we hold in our body and we don't find a connection with our own story, like story of abuse, like, I don't understand. I just feel something, but I cannot point it in my story. Like, it can be something we carry, for sure.
And this is where healing becomes less about fixing something that's isolated, right? And more about understanding those patterns that have been carried forward across time. And there's a difference between managing symptoms and actually healing. Would you like to define the difference?
Yeah. So first of all, I would say for me, healing, it comes from within. So I mean, even when we are working with a professional, he's not the one doing the healing. I think our responsibility as, I don't know, like healthcare provider, coaches, and any profession that supports people, I think we create the environment for people to find their own healing. That's my belief. And it's, for me, healing, it's a meeting of self. And symptoms are like, little breadcrumbs along our healing path, and we are the one walking the path. And sometimes it can be really linear. We meet someone, it's just guiding us and is walking hand in hand. And sometimes we fall into our own dark hole all alone, looking for the crumbs to lead ourselves back. And sometimes we are walking some of the path with someone and we meet someone else, and it all looks different. But I do really feel it's a path we walk on our own. And like we said together before, oftentimes when we come out, there's like this call from within, okay, I'm going to be one of the one to I'm going to go back and hold hands along the journey and the path, because we come back wiser. And this, in the Greek mythology, this Chiron, I don't know if you know about him. Chiron in the mythology, it's like the wounded healer. And he's someone that, it says he never fully heals from his wound, but his wounds are his best teachers. And through trying to heal himself, like, he creates a medicine for the world. And I do believe that's what a lot of us are doing.
Yeah, and a lot of times another important distinction is that management focuses on controlling.
Yeah.
Right? We're trying to control something, we're trying to eliminate something, we're trying to cover up something. Whereas healing, at least in my experience, and I think you would agree, it's all about integration.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've also used the word coherence, which is one of my favorite words. What does coherence feel like inside a regulated female system?
That's a big question. And I don't want to answer it like with technical terms. I think it's more important to just feel it. I think for me, coherence, it's not feeling peace and harmony all the time, because I think sometimes that's what people are looking for when they're doing nervous system regulation. It's like, can I be like a little, yogic all day and nothing is touching me, and I think that's not it. For me, it's just like an elastic or a pendulum, it's like swinging back and forth. And always finding my way back into peace, into integration. And when we look at emotions, because I think that's a good way to sense what I'm talking about. If we look at the scope of emotion, so if we go into the heart, and we can all try to feel it together. If we go into the heart and we go back to a memory where we felt so much love, and it could be for someone we love deeply, a child, like this moment of we felt our heart like totally open, and we can feel it for an instant, all this expansion. And we can now go through the pendulum and feel sometime where our heart was broken. Don't go into too much of a traumatic experience. It was just something like with deep sadness and grief. And let's try to pendulate it back to a lot of love. And then let's try to experiment what it feels in the middle. Not one of those extremes, but the middle. And it's in this middle, usually we find peace. And that's what's for me coherence. It's just like being able to go through the pendulum of life, because we know life is like that, and being able to first feel like when something is great and amazing and somehow intense, because great and amazing can be intense, it won't last. So we don't get attached and we don't get too agitated by it. And when it's hard, it's the same thing. It won't last. And it's finding this gymnastic of being able to go back to our center and integrate the good and the bad. So that's how I feel coherence is.
That was really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that and really just going with that. I appreciate it. And so many people don't know what regulation feels like, do they? Because they've lived in, some form of adaptation for so long. So naming that experience is incredibly powerful. For practitioners listening, what's one way they could begin holding space differently starting tomorrow?
You want a little practice? Yeah. Yeah. There's one practice that I really do love. So we're gonna experiment that together. So we're gonna connect, or let's stay in the heart, because I feel we've been there just before. And for some people, it would be easier to make contact. So we can bring one hand, the middle of our chest. So when I'm talking to the heart, it's more like the energetic heart. So it's more in the middle, behind our breastbone. And we can just feel the breath here, just for a moment, and feel like a chest moving with the rhythm of the breath. I'm trying to slow down the breath, extend the inhale, the exhale. Just land here. And when we feel ready, we can just drop down into our lower belly, into our pelvis. And we can bring our hand down if that helps. And trying to feel the breath here. And just noticing, from some of us, it's easy to feel the breath into the lower belly. For others, could be a place less accessible. So we just be with what is. And maybe feeling into each breath in the space in my pelvis. And this space being really such an important energetic center for us, female. But also an important center physically. All those organs that are the center of our health as women. And now we're going to connect the two. So I can bring one of my hands on my chest, one on my lower belly, and I'm going to explore if I can connect those two centers. So I can breathe up from my belly to my chest and down from my chest to my belly. And inhale from the belly to the chest, up. And exhale down. And I always like to visualize that as a river connecting heart and womb, up and down, and letting the energy circulate. It's really interesting, those two centers and that connection to it, because we find that practice in a lot of different traditions, like Chinese medicine, a lot of the ancient yogic tradition, and they all point towards how important it is for us women to really connect energetically those two centers. And that could be something, you could just spend a few breaths like that every day. And when we feel ready, we can come back and see if we can keep that connection, this awareness through the rest of our day.
For women listening, what helps reconnect them to their own inner authority?
I do feel for me, it's really honing the fact that we are the one that knows what's best for us and our body. Because I feel like from young age, we have been taught to delegate, our health decision to others. We were brought to see doctors and we're saying, oh, I don't think that, shh, the doctor knows. And oftentimes, at least in my generation, those doctors were male. And so we have been taught that, someone else knows better than us regarding our body, and some old man knows better than me in my body. And I'm always referencing. So I live in France, and we always catching up to what's happening in North America. It's become menopause has become a big topic, and they started organizing all those talks on television and news channels. And one of the first big ones they organized were all talking about menopause. A round table was 8 male, all above 50, sharing and explaining to women what menopause is and what is not. I look at it, was like, okay, that's what's going on, and it goes, like I said, it goes back to when we were tiny little things of few years old. And so we always feel other people knows better than us. And for me, it's going back to the wisdom of our body, and learning to trust it. I think that's the hardest part, because oftentimes we have intuition of what, oh, they told me to take that, they told me to do that. I didn't feel it, but I did listen anyway. And so it's going back to listening and learning to trust it. And that's, for me, when we are able to do that, it's just, we take our life back in a lot of ways.
It's so important that women honor their intuition, that, and those small shifts in awareness can create such meaningful changes over time. Think earlier when I asked you one question, I think you gave us your micro practice invitation.
Yes, I was not sure.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
Totally good. Yeah, but I'm going to ask you anyway, because, sometimes your soul will give me another answer when I ask it another way. So if somebody that's listening wanted to reconnect with their body in a simple way, what would you tell them to do every day?
I think it's finding a way to connect to our pelvis. I do feel, from my experience working with women, that often women would say, I feel my body is cut in half. I cannot sense below my heart. And then it shows up as digestive symptoms, or all the menstrual issues, pain during sexual intercourse of things. And when we go back to the nervous system that we talk about, like it's really this feeling because the nervous system is really like, it's like mapping things. It's really being cut in half. So so all women will find their own way. Some will like to dance and belly dancing or just walking barefoot in the nature. But it's really like bringing your energy down into the pelvis, into the legs, and how this have this downwards movement. It's really important to really inhabit our pelvis. For me, it's really key.
So, for all of our listeners out there, your micro practice invitation for this week is to reconnect, reach with those parts of yourself. And to do that, you can use that guided practice that Vanina provided us earlier, and it will be available in the show notes as well. Before we close, I have one final question for you. What do you most hope listeners will walk away remembering about themselves after hearing our conversation today?
That our female bodies are not something to fix. They're something to trust and listen to. And for all the men that are listening to us, it's also like reminding the woman in their life that their body has a deep intelligence and they should trust it. Yeah.
Vanina, thank you so much for this conversation. And to everyone listening, thank you for being here. If something in today's conversation resonated with you, please share it, like it, subscribe to our show. That's how these conversations reach the people that need to hear them the most. Take a moment before you move into your next task today. Notice your breath, notice your body. Notice what's asking for your attention and honor that. I'm Dr. Sarah Young, and this is NeuroAlchemy, the Brain Body Healing Podcast. Until next time, remember this: you are not broken, you're becoming. Bye for now.